In that profound moment of entry, a man crosses the inner threshold where his persona confronts the shadow, and genuine love can only unfold if he finds the courage to remain. As Carl Jung teaches us, this encounter stirs the unconscious depths far more intricately than most dare to envision, particularly in midlife, when the journey of individuation beckons us to face these hidden facets for true self-discovery and deeper connections. Over many years, intimacy has been reduced to something entirely physical, a quick exchange of desire and release. However, Jungian psychology reminds us that nothing in the human heart is that simple. In those quiet moments, there is a storm of emotions that men rarely admit, not to their partners, not to friends, sometimes not even to themselves. Beneath his composed exterior lie truths that can transform how you perceive love, trust, and attraction in your relationships. Jung once observed, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This rings especially true in intimacy, where, for a man, entering a woman is not mere passion, but a gateway where his persona clashes with the shadow, urging midlife reflection on unresolved inner conflicts for personal growth. The archetypes of the lover, the child, and the warrior rise in him, stirring vulnerability, fear, and desire. That's why intimacy often awakens contradictions, tenderness and hesitation, passion and withdrawal, closeness and silence. In this video, we will explore 5 hidden Jungian truths about how a man really feels when he enters you. These are not superficial dating tips or gimmicks. They offer profound psychological insights that reveal why some men pull away, why others hold on tightly, and how women can respond with insight rather than bewilderment. By the video's end, you'll gain a fresh perspective, freeing you from pursuit or speculation, allowing you to approach love with clarity, compassion, and inner strength, essential in midlife's quest for individuation and authentic bonds. If these reflections resonate with you, remember to like this video and subscribe to my channel, Jungian Mind Shift, so you don't miss more Jungian insights and heart-to-heart conversations. Let's begin with the first hidden truth, one that will entirely shift how you interpret his silence, his touch, and his hesitation in those most intimate moments. The first layer, power and vulnerability. The first sensation a man experiences upon entering a woman is a surge of power intertwined with a profound undercurrent of vulnerability. Like 2 opposing forces coursing through him simultaneously. On one side, he feels selected, validated in his masculinity, proud that she has opened herself and placed her trust in him, echoing Jung's archetypes in the everyday struggle for self-acceptance during midlife's individuation process. This moment touches something ancient in him, the archetypal masculine drive to conquer, to prove strength, to stand firm as the giver of life. On the other hand, this very moment makes him fragile, vulnerable, and afraid that he might not meet what she really wants. This paradox confuses many women. They see the confidence, the physical drive, the masculine strength, yet almost abruptly, they detect hesitation in his gaze, a particular silence afterward, or an unspoken need for affirmation. He might inquire indirectly through touch, by drawing you nearer, or even by retreating inward. The unspoken question he harbors is, am I sufficient? Have I pleased her? Will she desire me tomorrow? These are not immature insecurities, but deep shadows that surface in midlife, compelling us toward Jungian self-discovery and integration of the unconscious. They are secret shadows that men often never admit. Carl Jung's psychology helps us understand why this happens. The persona, the confident mask he shows to the world, collides with the shadow, the hidden fears of inadequacy and rejection. In that moment, his archetypes are aroused. The lover archetype feels victorious and alive, proud to be desired. The child archetype trembles, yearning for comfort and validation. The warrior archetype insists on control, displaying strength, even when inwardly uncertain. This inner conflict is what makes intimacy with men so complex and sometimes baffling, especially as we navigate midlife's call to confront these archetypes for true individuation and relational harmony. This is not pure arrogance. It is armor. They are trying to silence the small voice inside that whispers, "Did I disappoint her for other men?" The experience opens the door to genuine vulnerability. They become softer. They look deeper into your eyes. They crave closeness beyond the physical act. This is the man who dares to be fully seen. And because of that, he may become a more bonded lover. Women often wonder, why does he sometimes seem distant after intimacy? Or, why does he suddenly hold me tighter? The answer lies in the dance between power and vulnerability. If the shadow of fear overwhelms him, he may withdraw, needing space to rebuild his confident mask, a common midlife struggle where Jung's unconscious forces demand acknowledgement for self-discovery. If he feels safe in your presence, he may lean toward you, seeking the affirmation that allows him to integrate his vulnerability instead of hiding it. Jung taught that what we resist persists. If a man resists his fragile feelings, they often return as projections. He may accuse you of judging him or complain that you are hard to please when in reality, it is his own inner critic tormenting him. But if he embraces both his pride and fear, both strength and tenderness, he moves closer to individuation, becoming whole and authentic in love. For women, understanding this first layer is crucial. Many believe men engage in intimacy solely for release, but the truth is, he is also seeking validation of his worth not just through praise, but through the sense that you accept both his power and his fragility, fostering midlife growth and meaningful connections. If you dismiss his vulnerability, he may shut down. If you demand constant proof of his strength, he may crumble under the weight of expectations. But if you see that his masculinity includes both power and fear, pride and doubt, you create space for intimacy that is both passionate and emotionally safe. This is why the first layer of intimacy is so important. A man feels proud to be chosen but also fragile because he fears not being enough. The second layer, validation. If the first layer is power blended with vulnerability, the second is validation. For many men, the act of entering a woman is unconsciously experienced as proof of worth, highlighting Jung's shadow work essential in midlife for uncovering unconscious needs and achieving self-discovery. It confirms that they are desirable, chosen, and sufficient. This moment can feel like evidence that they belong, that they matter, that their masculinity has been affirmed in a way the world rarely provides. However, here lies a paradox that Jung would point out. If validation is tied only to that act, it will never truly satisfy. In these moments, a man often looks not to his own performance, but to his partner's response. Her breathing, the sounds of surrender, the look in her eyes, these become silent signs of whether he has been enough. When her body relaxes, when her gaze softens, he feels validated. A key step in midlife individuation, where integrating the anima helps confront unconscious doubts about self-worth. But when she seems distant, distracted, or unmoved, he may withdraw into himself, doubting himself, fearing he has failed some invisible test. Carl Jung's psychology shows that many aspects of male desire are not a conscious choice, but a pull from the unconscious, shaped by archetypes. A man often seeks external validation because inside, he is battling the shadow of inadequacy. The lover craves affirmation. The hero craves victory, while the shadow whispers, "You are not good enough." A partner's response thus becomes something more than pleasure. It becomes a mirror, reflecting both his pride and his doubts. Here is the debate. Some view male desire as purely biological, but Jung argues that biology cannot explain the deep hunger for validation. In intimate moments, a man's inner conflicts arise. Is he the conqueror or a child craving praise? Confident or silently begging for reassurance? If he seeks validation only here, he risks a vicious cycle, chasing from partner to partner, not for pure desire, but for the need to constantly prove himself. Each moment answers, "Am I worthy?" only for the fear to return. As Jung warned, what remains in the unconscious will rule us like fate. Until a man confronts his shadow of inadequacy, no amount of encounters can silence it. For women, this can create confusion and even pain. You may wonder why he sometimes seems obsessed with your response, why he seeks signs that you are moved, or why he becomes distant if you are silent. The truth is, in those moments, he is not just seeking pleasure, he is seeking evidence that he is good enough. Your breathing, your gaze, your sounds, these become the proof he unconsciously craves. But here is the challenge. You are not responsible for healing his inner shadow. You cannot carry the burden of his self-worth. What you can do is recognize the dynamic, respond authentically, and choose whether his quest for validation is grounded in genuine connection or in endless hunger. Jung's understanding here is liberating. Validation is natural, but when it becomes the sole goal, it enslaves both partners. True intimacy is not about performing to prove, but about allowing vulnerability to be embraced. When a man begins to integrate his shadow, to accept that he is both strong and uncertain, he no longer needs every merging moment to declare his value. He can rest in connection instead of chasing validation. The second layer teaches us a profound truth. Intimacy becomes dangerous when reduced to mere proof of worth. But when it becomes a meeting of two souls, where validation arises naturally from authentic presence, it can transform both partners. Have you ever noticed a man seeming to seek your reaction throughout intimacy, and do you think he is really seeking pleasure or proof that he is good enough? The third layer, dissolving walls, biological bonding. From ancient stories in human history, men are often depicted as wanderers who return. Ancient myths portray males as hunters, roaming the world but repeatedly returning to the hearth, to the woman, to the familiar embrace. In Greek epics, warriors fought for glory in distant lands, but longed for the arms of Penelope or Andromache. In tribal cultures, initiation rites emphasized separation from women, but also celebrated reunion, viewing it as the recreation of life. These patterns show that although men seem restless, something deeper draws them back to a certain bond. Modern science provides a clearer picture of why. During intimacy, the male body releases oxytocin and dopamine, the same chemicals that bond mothers to newborns and form memories of comfort. These neurochemical changes blur the boundaries between desire and emotion. They create a sense of merging, the feeling that in that moment, his boundaries dissolve and he fully belongs to another. Even if a man logically convinces himself the encounter is casual, his nervous system remembers her body, scent, rhythm. This memory is not just in the mind, but etched in his biology. Carl Jung would go further, beyond biology to psychology, and symbolism. For Jung, intimacy is the symbolic integration of opposites, masculine and feminine, conscious and unconscious, persona and shadow. He believed that union carries a mythic weight because it represents the soul's longing for wholeness. The man in these moments may not realize it, but he is enacting an archetypal script. He is not just touching a woman, he is encountering his anima, the feminine part of his soul yearning for integration. This is why the bond can feel overwhelming. Why he may feel both expansion and loss of control. Here lies one of the most debated points in Jung's thought. Some critics argue that intimacy is merely chemistry and instinct, a matter of hormones and evolution. Jung contends that biology cannot explain the depth of attachment, nor how a single experience can leave a man haunted for years. He points to the collective unconscious, home to archetypes of union and longing. In his view, a man's return to a woman is not just for oxytocin, but because she has awakened something in his unconscious, a memory of his own incompleteness, and the promise of wholeness she offers. For many women, this explains why a man may keep returning, even when reason says he shouldn't. He may not calculate it. He may not even understand it. His body has remembered her. His unconscious has imprinted her as the bearer of his anima. This can create deep attachment, sometimes even obsession. What seems like a simple connection on the surface is, in Jung's view, a powerful spiritual link drawing him toward the mirror of his own soul. But there are risks. If a man confuses this bonding with possession, he may cling, demanding constant access to maintain the illusion of wholeness. If he denies it, pretending the attachment doesn't exist, he may scatter himself across multiple encounters, never understanding why one woman's ghost haunts him. Jung would warn that until the man confronts the symbolic meaning of this merging, he remains trapped, either obsessed with holding on or restless in seeking what he has lost. For women, understanding this third layer brings clarity. If he repeatedly returns, it may not be strategy or manipulation, but simply the reality that his nervous system and unconscious have bonded to you. You are not responsible for his inner journey. But knowing this truth allows you to step back with wisdom. You can choose whether the bond becomes a foundation for growth or whether it pulls both of you into a vortex of obsession. The fourth layer, fear versus love. A middle-aged man once shared in therapy, "I thought this was casual. I told myself I could walk away without a trace. But right in the moment I was with her, something broke open in me. Afterward, I kept thinking, will she forget me? Am I just a fleeting shadow in her life?" I was afraid. And at the same time, I realized I cared about her more than I ever thought. His confession reveals a reality many men never publicly admit. Intimacy not only awakens desire, but also the struggle between fear and love. On the surface, men often claim they can separate closeness from attachment. They say they can keep it casual, treating intimacy as an experience without deeper consequences. However, Carl Jung would caution us that the unconscious does not obey logic. Intimacy is never just physical. It is also a spiritual doorway. A man may enter with the belief that he is in control, but he quickly discovers that intimacy pierces his defenses. What emerges is not just joy, but love unexpected and overwhelming. Fear often surfaces first. There is the fear of failure, the anxiety that he has not pleased her or proven himself. There is the fear of being unmemorable, the obsessive thought that she might walk away untouched while he remains consumed. There is the fear of comparison, the doubt that she is quietly measuring him against other men and finding him lacking. Jung would describe these fears as whispers from the shadow, the part of the psyche carrying self-doubt, inadequacy, and shame. Intimacy shines an unrelenting light into this chamber. forcing him to face what he prefers to keep hidden. However, even as fear dominates, love quietly enters the picture. Jung spoke of the anima, the feminine within every man, which comes alive when intimacy is shared. The woman before him is no longer just a partner. She becomes the mirror of his soul. This is why men who insist they want nothing serious often find themselves unexpectedly attached. The anima does not respond to logic or agreements. It responds to resonance, and when it is stirred, the bond becomes undeniable. This creates a paradox. The rational mind insists on keeping intimacy light and safe, but the unconscious tells a different truth. This is love. This is connection. This is the reflection of your deepest longings. Intimacy breaks down the walls he has built over years, exposing a softness he may not even know exists. He may resist it, but he cannot fully escape it. For women, this explains seemingly contradictory behavior. One day he withdraws, avoiding calls and pretending nothing has changed. The next day, he returns, holding on tighter than before. This is not hypocrisy. It is the battle between the shadow and the anima, between the fear of being forgotten and a love that refuses to stay hidden. The cost of ignoring this paradox can be heavy. A man who denies the love awakened in intimacy may become hardened, treating closeness as a test of pride rather than a space for connection. This often creates confusion and pain, leaving both partners wounded. But a man who acknowledges his fears and still leans into love begins the process Jung called individuation. He learns to integrate the shadow with consciousness, strength with softness. In doing so, he becomes capable not just of desire, but of devotion. Jung would remind us that until men face this paradox, they remain its prisoners. Fear convinces them to flee. Love threatens to expose them. Both forces pull in opposite directions. However, when they accept that fear and love always arrive together, intimacy transforms. It no longer becomes a test of masculinity, but a path to wholeness. For women, understanding this can foster compassion. When a man withdraws after intimacy, it may not mean emptiness. Often, it means too much has been stirred within him. Fear and love collide, leaving him disoriented. Recognizing this truth does not excuse neglect, but it helps you see the humanity beneath his contradictions. He is not just torn between leaving and staying. He is torn between fleeing love and surrendering to it. Do you believe intimacy awakens love more often than men admit? And could that change how you understand their post-intimacy contradictions? The fifth layer: identity and presence. Throughout history, the meaning of intimacy for men has shifted significantly. In ancient societies, masculinity was often tied to conquest and lineage. A man's value was measured by his ability to produce offspring or prove dominance. Intimacy, in this sense, was framed as duty, a transaction between power and survival. The emotional aspect was rarely mentioned, and vulnerability often buried under cultural expectations. In contrast, the modern man lives in a more complex web of identities. Intimacy is no longer just about survival or status. It has become deeply intertwined with self-perception. How he is received by a woman can affirm or destabilize how he sees himself. In Jungian terms, intimacy touches the persona, the mask he presents to the world, and tests whether it aligns with a deeper self. A man may enter with the belief that he is confident, capable, strong, but afterward wonder, am I truly present? Does she see me as I wish to be seen? This is where presence becomes vital. Jung often emphasized the importance of consciousness, of being fully aware in the moment. When a man is truly present in intimacy, He not only experiences union with another, but also a clearer reflection of himself. However, presence is vulnerable. It can be nurtured or shattered by the smallest signals from a woman afterward. A touch of gratitude, a gentle embrace, or simply staying close can affirm his identity, telling him that you are not only desired, you are accepted. On the other hand, indifference, distance, or coldness can wound him deeply, stirring the shadow of inadequacy and rejection. This duality is why intimacy is never neutral. It either heals or hurts. A man may leave the same encounter either more integrated or more fragmented, depending on how he perceives his partner's presence afterward. Jung would describe this as the meeting of archetypes. When the woman responds with warmth, she embodies the nurturing aspect of the anima, helping him integrate vulnerability into his self-sense. When she responds with rejection, she awakens the shadow, leaving him trapped in doubt and shame. The conflict between past and present becomes evident here. In earlier times, a man might dismiss these inner shudders, viewing them as weakness. Culture reinforced stoicism, telling him intimacy was about performance and duty, not emotion. But the modern man, shaped by shifting expectations, cannot easily separate identity from emotion. He may scoff at it, but inwardly he knows. How she responds changes how he views himself. This tension creates both risk and opportunity. If he builds his identity solely on her response, he risks dependency, forever chasing affirmation. If he entirely ignores her presence, he risks detachment, using intimacy as an empty act rather than a transformative one. Jung's lessons offer a middle path. Individuation means holding both truths, being aware of a partner's presence's impact while also shaping identity from one's own inner wholeness. For women, this layer reveals the influence they hold, a small act of care afterward, a word of gratitude, or even meaningful silence goes beyond the moment. It can bolster his confidence or shatter it. This does not mean a woman is responsible for his self-worth, but it does mean her presence matters. Intimacy does not end when bodies separate. It lingers in the mind, shaping how he sees himself and the relationship. The fifth layer teaches us that intimacy is never casual on a soul level. It reshapes identity. It reshapes presence. And in this reshaping, a man either draws closer to his true self or retreats deeper into the shadow. Jung would remind us that this is the ultimate task: to accept the mirror intimacy provides, to confront both pride and doubt, and to let presence, not performance, define love's meaning. We have journeyed through the 5 hidden layers of male psychology. For a man, it is not just a physical act, but a mirror in which he confronts his shadow, his anima, and his deepest longings. Carl Jung reminded us that until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Intimacy is one of the clearest places where this truth comes alive. It brings to the surface both a man's power and vulnerability, both his need for validation and his fear of rejection, both his capacity for love and its resistance. To understand these layers is to see beyond the mask, to recognize that behind every confident pose is a soul grappling with its own contradictions. For women, this knowledge can be a source of liberation. It helps you see that when a man withdraws, it may not mean indifference, but overwhelm. When he clings, it may not mean weakness, but the awakening of attachment he didn't intend to feel. And when he seeks your presence after intimacy, often it is not performance he craves, but confirmation that he has truly been seen. For men, accepting these truths is the beginning of freedom. To acknowledge fear without shame, to accept that love seeps in when least expected, and to let intimacy reshape identity. This is the path of individuation, the journey toward a whole and authentic life. If you found value in this exploration, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to my channel, Jungian Mindshift. Your support allows us to bring more insights from Jung and heart-to-heart conversations. And if you know someone who would be touched by these reflections, share this video with them. In the next episode, we will delve deeper into archetypes, exploring the timeless patterns that shape attraction, love, and the collective unconscious. Until then, remember this: intimacy is not just about what two bodies share. It is about how two souls awaken each other to truth.